Welcome back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Brad, who works in functional medicine, but also is going to share his story with us about his public speaking anxiety. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. I got some rest last night. We've accomplished a bunch of things. We recently bought a new house, and I've got to do a ton of stuff to it, and we're making some really good headway, saving a crazy amount of money doing it, and it's a good day. It's
Yeah.
just a good day.
And I love your voice. You kind of have like this Elliott vibe.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
You don't know Sam Elliott.
No, no. I told you I'm a different person. There's not been a TV in a home I've lived in for 45 years.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So as far as media goes, I'm checked out.
Oh, okay. That's understandable. So tell myself and the listeners a little bit about yourself.
um, uh, well, okay. When I got out of high school in 3 years, started working construction, and Lord got a hold of me about the time I turned 20. It changed my life, told me to get out of construction, go back to school. I hate school. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate school. Uh, this one story, it's how to overcome things. It's pretty funny. I got tagged in the hallways of my high school by
Uh-huh.
the dean of student affairs. Her name was Dee Silva, and people just joked about her. She was an ex-army wax sergeant, and she
Mhm.
she waddled more like a penguin when she walked. People laughed,
Uh-huh.
said she was as tall as she was around in girth.
Mhm.
She gets me in the hallway and goes, "Brad, follow me." And she takes me into her office, and the office got this tiny little round table. I don't even know it was 3 foot around, and a little desk off in the corner, and this chair and another chair. She tells me to sit down. There's a pile of notes in the center, and I just for a joke, I I wrote all my own notes in school. I did a bunch of things there that were just for a joke. And anyway, she's trying to catch me for cutting school, and I don't know anybody that cut school more than I did.
Mhm.
And she's trying to get me to confess and say, if I don't confess, she's going to call my mom. So I don't care. Go ahead. So she reaches her phone. She calls my mom up, and she pulls a note out of the pile for like a week absence, and she goes, "Hi, this is Dee Silva from Del Valle High School. I just perchance happen to have your son Brad in the office here, and I wonder if you could tell me if he was sick on such and such a date." My mom goes, "Oh yeah, he had strep throat." She goes on and on and on. It's like she's reading the note, and this lady's jaw just drops down,
Uh-huh.
and she's going, "Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh,
Mhm.
uh-huh. Okay." It just reaches and clicks the phone. She's so puzzled. She doesn't understand what just happened because she knows I'm cutting school. And this is for like a week's absence. She just doesn't know there's good notes and bad notes and whatever in there. And she's just looking off like this. I mean, she's just checked out. And I go, "Is that all?" And she
Mhm.
doesn't answer. I wait about a minute. And I go, "Can I go now?" And she doesn't answer. And I just got her from the chair and walked out, and just said,
Wow.
you would not believe how much I despised school. It was a
Mhm.
waste. When I learned that the whole point of high school was to keep people out of the workforce, I was done. I was
Mhm.
done before that, but that was it. So to go back to school was absolutely just totally crazy. And he led me into doing functional medicine, which is what we do now, and we help people from the absolute worst chronic illness nightmares that have been to the best specialists all over the world. We right now are working with, well, last year we worked with, I think, 5 people that were in one of the top medical institutions in the world. Long-term care weren't getting any better, and we got all those people healthy again. Right now I'm working uh, with somebody on the other side of the world who's been to the best clinics in the world,
Hmm.
seeking care and not gotten any help. And inside of a week, we've pretty much changed her life, and they're getting along. So that's primarily my vocation. My passion is the kingdom of God, and I've been all over the world sharing that with pretty much anybody. So there's just it's been an interesting life.
Yeah. And so, what exactly does functional medicine consist of?
um, I came into functional medicine when it was pretty young. It's a lot different now than what it used to be. Functional medicine was started by a bunch of clinical nutrition chiropractors who needed continuing education in doing these very unique clinical nutrition things. And
Hmm.
they found this biologist with a PhD name with the name Dr. Jeffrey Bland. They called him out into the Midwest to do some continuing education. Dr. Bland says, they taught me way more than I taught them. But
Hmm.
I had the degree so I could sign their papers. And that was the beginning of functional medicine, where these people are looking at functional ways to do things in unique ways that no other profession had access to.
Okay.
And functional diagnostics using other means than what everybody does. The medical community looked at that, and they started integrative medicine. It's a spin-off of that. And then they infiltrated functional medicine, and they brought their ideas into an ideology. And now people are using lab tests and the same dysfunctional type of diagnostic means to try and figure things out, which can't work.
Hmm.
They can't tell you what you need to know. Like most people don't know. As a for instance, the lab test for Lyme disease, they used to be the Lyme labs, best Lyme labs in the world, would publish that their results were 0 to 20% accurate if you took the samples when the first 1 to 2 weeks of infection. Now the best Lyme lab in the world just says on their website, our tests are not a diagnosis.
Hmm.
And people don't realize that most of the lab tests that people are getting, trying to get these ideas, have less than 10% accuracy.
Okay.
Food intolerance testing, 2 to 3% accurate. That's all. And you
Hmm.
can spend 2,500, $3,000 on food intolerance testing with a 2 to 3% accuracy. And the
Hmm.
reason why it's so inaccurate is there's so many ways that things interact. They don't know what all those ways are, and they only have defined 2 to 3% of those tests. So they try and test those with 0 to 20% accuracy.
Yeah.
And it's so this is part of the reason why people stay sick so long and why people get chronically ill. The amount of our resolution is over 4 times what most doctors can help back to full health. And there's plenty of studies out there that show doctors can help. That's help reduce symptoms. 20 to 25% of the people that walk in their office
Hmm.
were over 4 times that back to full health.
Hmm.
Our approach is absolutely totally different, and there's no way you can get the information we do an evaluation off a lab test. There's just no lab tests that exist to do it. So we've created our own testing system and all that that's completely functional, where you can define what's going on per somebody metabolically, infective issues, parasitic issues, food intolerance issues. You can define all that with 95+% accuracy
Hmm.
every time, and you can use that accuracy to test what resolves it with 95+% accuracy. So people who approach things with those types of tools have a means to help people out that just no one else can do. And
Hmm.
there's not many of us out there.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
because so when someone comes to see you, when you have patients, and because I know earlier you stated that you do everything naturally, what does that consist of when patients are coming to see you?
okay, so I'll clarify something. Most of the people we work with are long distance away. Some
Okay.
are halfway around the world, some are in Europe, some are the other side of our country, some are, you know, thousands of miles away.
Hmm.
And um, And the accuracy, this gives you an understanding. We got a phone call from a family. A young girl about 5 years of age spent 5.5 days in a research hospital getting scanned studies and tests for 5.5 days, and nobody could figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
A relative begged the parents to work with us. They got a hold of us, filled out some paperwork. We did an evaluation. That afternoon, in 2 hours, we figured out everything that's going on with this young child, what was causing everything, how to resolve it, gave them direction. They had some product available that they borrowed from somebody else while we were sending things out. The next day, she was out of bed. 3 days later, she's outside. And 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she has ever been since she was born. Um,
Oh.
so the way we do that is we evaluate first every metabolic function. So we go through
Hmm.
every organ system, checking at a minutia all the different functions, like an adrenal for say. Most people look and say, okay, let's see how your adrenals working. And they might check cortisol issues. We got 10 different functions we
Hmm.
evaluate out of the adrenals. Liver, somebody might do a couple tests on liver to get a couple enzymes out of it. That's all. We've got 20 different tests we do on the liver. Tests we got on the guts probably close to 50. And we just go through every single organ system, evaluating every metabolic function, figure out what root issues are, how to resolve those. Then we pull that off. We go through a food intolerance evaluation, go through like 11 different food classes, figure out
Hmm.
what people can eat to heal, set that aside. Then we go through infective uh, stuff to figure out what kind of bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold, virus, parasites, all that, what's going on. And then we go through another test to figure out what kind of environmental toxins are going on with people, and what's clogging all their detox pathways. We've already resolved that. And then we test all those things to figure out how we can resolve that. And by the
Hmm.
time we're done, most people that go to doctor to try and find something like that, they're going to have at least a month worth of testing come back in 4 to 6 weeks. We'll try and figure something out. In a couple hours, we have all that information, and we know what's going on, what's causing what kind of infective issues are, what somebody needs to be able to eat to be able to heal, what they need to drink to be able to heal, and they're on the road running.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so it's extremely different, and you're talking about how do you connect with people and all that. You can tell from my demeanor and the way that I'm talking.
Hmm.
I don't. One of my brothers, he can only talk in a condescending way, just belittling everybody, and
Hmm.
I'm the other way.
Yeah.
I'm lifting people up, and in the same time, you have to get involved with people's lives and what's going on in their lives to get people better. And,
Hmm.
and, and not just better, but to give them their life back. You have to get involved with their lives to figure what that is. So there's a vulnerability on all sides.
Yeah.
Um, Something I learned in ministry many, many, many years ago that's a reality. Uh, to do healing types of ministries and things like that, people spend a lot of time building faith to try and get people so they can receive it.
Hmm.
When you start working with people to get them set free from the things of the past called deliverance, you
Hmm.
have to build trust. And
Yeah.
you can't build trust by having these cloaks and these closed off things. You have to be open and vulnerable and real and just connect with people. And it's the same thing with health as
Hmm.
as you're talking relational health
Hmm.
and relational past issues and all the things that just beat people up. You have to, we had this one incident one evening. Lord's had me run ministry schools at different times. A woman came in who was just a mess, and she kept saying, I can't believe I'm pouring my heart out in this group that there's just a bunch of men in it. I just can't believe I'm doing it. She was in prostitution when she walked in the door.
Hmm.
And I think women understand how broken that makes a person.
Yes.
They're just fractured.
Hmm.
Um, and so we did some ministry with her and got her set free from all that stuff. And you don't know how much impact that really has. It was a long time down the road. I ran into her again someplace and I asked her how she's doing. She's in a monogamous, committed relationship,
Hmm.
married, building a family.
Yeah.
And you just go, wow, God. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think there's a deeper sense of healing than that
Yeah.
type of fracturing to that kind of a life.
Absolutely.
Um, and with all that, you just have to connect.
Hmm.
Uh, and in this just empathetic, compassionate, non-judgmental way.
Yeah.
Hey,
I understand. I like that. So when you're seeing these clients, and I know that you stated that you've been on several podcasts and that you're in ministry, how did you overcome your public speaking if you're able to do all of these things?
oh boy, that's an interesting story. Um, when I was young, actually even when I was an adult, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack
Hmm.
speaking publicly
Yeah.
whatsoever. The second time the Lord let me go out of the country doing ministry, we went. First time we went into Eastern Europe and Russia as the Berlin Wall was coming down. I went
Hmm.
back in 2 years later. We, I think, yeah, we came into Austria. Um, uh, most people call it Vienna, but over there they call it Wien.
Hmm.
Came into Austria and we assembled with some other people who were working at a missionary outpost. Then we drove to the edge of the Ukraine and we took a 5-day trip on the Trans-Siberian Railway into the middle of Siberia and like smack dab in the center of Siberia
Hmm.
and just start doing street ministry out there. It was in the middle of street ministry. We were doing dramas and, as part of the worship team, doing things, carrying a guitar all over the place. And yeah, there's so many stories for that. But it's in the midst of that we do dramas and we do music and draw people in, crowds that gather, and then somebody would share something, and there's all kinds of different ways where that would happen. So it's just this constant flow of
Hmm.
all this interaction going on, there's one drama that we did called the Sleeper, or
Hmm.
well, that's not what it's called, but is a player, and there's all these people in the play acting different roles. There's a money changer, there was a beauty queen, there was a weightlifter, there's a financer. I was the Lord in that, and this person would go and they tap on the shoulder of one of these people one at a time, and they'd come to life doing their thing and offering that to him, and he'd try it, and it wasn't fulfilling. And one of those things, one of the people they tap on was a boxer, and that guy'd act like he's going to knock him, and he'd backflip off the stage and flop on the floor. And I'm the Lord, and he goes through all these people, and
Yeah.
nothing satisfies. And he comes up to me, and I just offer him some hope, and he goes to grab for it, and all these people crucify me.
Oh, wow.
And this was a dramatic drama with no
Hmm.
words. It's just acted out, no words,
Hmm.
acted out. You got to just play the part. And I just gave myself into the part. And when they crucify me, people in the audience, their eyes are huge. Then come back to life and offer this guy what he was seeking for. And some of the players, they would do the same thing that you offered the audience. And it was in that drama the Lord lifted this thing, this fear of being in front of people and interacting. And it's amazing because people play all kinds of games, and
Hmm.
when they're speaking publicly, they look over heads and they do all that. I don't do any of that. I look
Hmm.
people right in the eye,
Yeah.
and I'm connecting with people. And there could be thousands of people out there, and I'm connecting one on one to people as I'm interacting and doing stuff. I got like 30 years of prison ministry under my belt, and the amount of we do that with all this connective interaction,
Hmm.
getting down at people's level and sharing life from wherever they're at.
Yeah. I like
And
that.
it's a really unique way to live. One time we're going into the place where we gather for prison ministry, and the Lord healed somebody just a little while before that.
Hmm.
Somebody had been a Southern Pentecostal, came in there and they're heavily handed, pushing people over. And, you don't do that in a prison. The alarms go off, guards are running, all kinds of stuff like that. So I come in like 3 weeks after that, and I'm down interacting with people. I go, what would you do if God offered something, and I'm going back and forth with people. This got one guy in the front. He finally goes, "You asking me?" I go, "Yeah. What would you do?" He said, "I'd take it." Oh, here you are, Lord. You set me up again.
Mhm.
And he loves to do that because there's no pretense. There's no preparation for anything. It's just completely spontaneous. This guy had injured his shoulder the day before in the gym, and he couldn't lift his arm. This is all he
Mhm.
could do with his arm.
Yeah.
And okay, so come on up. So he comes up, and Lord has me pick all these other different inmates that are in there and have them come up and surround him and pray for him. And I'm halfway across the room. So it's inmates ministering to inmates. And I'm talking to the other people who are still sitting down, going, any idea why the Lord had me have these guys come forward? And they're
Mhm.
looking at me, I don't know. Because every one of those people that are up there, they have a devotional life. They're filling their own cup with their own time with the Lord. So the Lord can use them
Right.
because they're used to that. And
Mhm.
this is how He wants people to be. So those people are spending time and they're filling their own cup. So He's going to use them. And I'm talking to the rest of the inmates, and from halfway around the room, I just turn to this guy, lift up a hand, and say a real simple prayer. Excuse the people, and the inmates are surrounded, and they're walking back, and they look like they're 3 feet off the ground.
Mhm.
God just used them,
Mhm.
and they're just above the things of the earth, and they're just like, wow, that was just a cool thing. God just used me, and He moved through me, and I felt that, and that was really huge. So
Wow.
they're all going back, and the guy, he plops down the seat that's closer to where I am, and I go, so how you doing? He goes, I don't know. He goes, hey guys, look at this. You guys know what happened to me yesterday, and I walked in and I'm like this, and check this out, guys. And it's all on the monitors, and this lady's in the room right next to me. She's the guard that's closest, and you got two other places where you have the crew on monitors, and since something's going on, they just had this alarm like 2 or 3 weeks before for the Southern Pentecostal guy coming in there. you know their antennas are up, like, do we got a blitz? And they're watching, and they're
Mhm.
calling the other guards going, hey guys, watch this, check this out,
Mhm.
check this out. And they see all this. So
Mhm.
a few weeks later, she asked me, I'm going with the same guard that was in the room next door. And she goes, so what are you going to share on today? And I looked at her and said, I have no idea. She goes, what? I have no clue.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I said, the Lord does not allow me to bring a prepared message here. Hasn't for a, at least a decade.
Mhm.
It's a rare time when anything. She goes, are you kidding? I go, yeah, I know. To be that vulnerable in front of a bunch of prisoners sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? That's
Mhm.
how God meets me.
Mhm.
I'm completely 100% dependent on Him. If He doesn't show up, I might as well not even shown up either. and
Right.
I know he's going to show up. So we dialogue, and whatever they bring up, that's what we share on.
Hmm.
And Lord just meets us in the middle of it, and it's just so full of life. It's just uh, a huge thing.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So definitely through repetition and of course with God's help, you're able to overcome that anxiety.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, people have looked at me and go, "Wow, you're so peaceful."
Hmm.
I go, well, the only people I know that are peaceful are the people who've been through absolute hell,
Yes.
and he meets them in the middle of it. You know, I
That's
just did a
good.
podcast on Friday where they were, um, uh, he was looking for ways that God meets people in the midst of their trials and how they overcome them. And
Hmm.
I shared some depth of things on that. I think it's his podcast is the Pain Factor, Payne.
Hmm.
And I don't know when that one's going to go live, but it was so rich. I mean, it
Hmm.
was just so rich. And he goes, "Wow, I got so much out of this. I got a bunch of notes, so many things I can apply to my life." And you shared so much understanding that's so practical
Hmm.
of of things. He goes, I hope you got something out of this. And I said, I always get something out of this. And he's just kind of puzzled. I said, this is how God meets me. I'm a
Hmm.
conduit. And,
Hmm.
you know, he just chooses to do that with me. And so he pours through me whenever he uses me.
Hmm.
And it's always a fresh revelation. It's always a fresh word. You know, there's a lot of foundational truth that's in there that he can springboard off of. But he's had me in the streets doing that for such a long period of time. It's just a way of life. And
Yeah.
I'll go in to get a haircut, and my wife's hanging out in the car, and it's an hour later. I'm not out of there, and she goes, "There it is again." He's just ministering to somebody, and we we moved to a different part of the country, and to get electrical, you had to go
Hmm.
into the office and have a face-to-face time with somebody. Well, we walk in and the guy's got a brace on his wrist, and we're talking to him, interacting, and we're setting up the account. And, you know, after a while, I go, "Hey, how long you had that brace on your wrist? And, you know, what's the deal with that?" And yeah, it was for a while. He hadn't been able to use his hand or his wrist at all. I said, "You mind if I look at that?"
Hmm.
And he kind of goes, "Huh?" I said, "You mind if I take a look at that? You take your brace off and hand me your wrist. Yeah, hand me your hand across your desk. Start playing with it, the Lord heals
Hmm.
it."
Yeah.
And you know, it's a unique way to live. Nothing dramatic, you know, nothing strange. It's just we're talking like this,
Hmm.
and Lord just, you know, playing with his wrist, and Lord heals it.
Yeah.
I just go, wow, that's cool.
Hmm.
You know, and he does that in parking lots and other stores. You know, you tell people who you are. There's no commercial with it at all. It's just, you know, it's just God.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So you're a healer.
I'm not. He just chooses me to use that way. Chooses
Hmm.
to use me that way, and
Hmm.
um, you know, whatever I do is not me. It's him, and
Hmm.
uh, you know, it's an interesting thing. You look at healing biblically, and there's huge healing ministries. Jesus was the biggest as far as that goes. But you look at the impact of the healing ministry for people that come to know him. It's
Hmm.
it's 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 a small, minute fraction of the people that are healed. Most, you know, he had 10 lepers, and only one came back to say thanks.
Hmm.
And he's got all these stories about that. It's he does those things to prove that he exists, and he still commands nature, and that he loves people and he cares for them a huge amount. Um, but it's not fruitful in the way people would think it would be.
Mm-hmm.
It enriches people's lives. It gives people their life back, and we, I think there's 3 hands that he healed people out here in a short period of time like that. And, it just allows people to go back and function their life. But what impact that had as far as the kingdom of God goes, I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't know. Just let them know where it comes from and let God be God.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. And because even through my poetry, when I'm doing this, I always tell everyone it's my voice that you're hearing, but it's God who's speaking. And I like what you said, how he pours through some of us, and that's it. It's like our through our creativity and who we are, it's we're an image of him, so it's like he uses us as a part of his masterpiece, and that's the way that I see it, that's the way that I believe it, and I believe that that's the way that he uses you, and I really appreciate you sharing that story with us.
Yeah, when you look at functionally how that is, when he made man, he breathed his spirit, not the breath of life, into him. The Hebrew word for that's ruach, which
Hmm.
is capital H, capital S, Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
Um, and and he breathes that into the clay, and it's really interesting. He gave Adam 2 positive commands and 1 negative one.
Hmm.
One was to take dominion and rule the earth, but that was in close proximity and close fellowship with him as the Lord showed him how to rule it. He was to rule it in God's stead for
Hmm.
God's purposes in constant communion with God. And he gave that away in the fall and he traded it for life. But the other one was to be fruitful and multiply.
Hmm.
And a lot of people think that the whole idea of being filled with the Spirit is to get gifts and things like that. No, it's to be able to
Hmm.
to be empowered to live a godly life.
Yeah.
And that what you just talked about is that fruit of the indwelling of the Spirit of God moving through people in all these creative ways to
Yes.
show and express who He is.
Hmm.
You look at cultures throughout antiquity,
Hmm.
he was expressed through arts
Yeah.
in most cultures. And for some reason, we've had some very prudish people in some high places who have tried to convince our society that there's no room for God in the arts. It's like, are you
Hmm.
nuts?
Right. Right.
I mean, look at the flowers in the earth
Hmm.
and explain what you just said.
Yeah.
Beautiful expressions, aromatic expressions don't mean anything. When you look at a passage like love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind,
Hmm.
soul, and strength. You know what that word love, what you know what it means?
Hmm.
It's the exact same word to go make love to your spouse.
Hmm.
Intimate, abandoned interaction with me
Hmm.
is what I want people to do.
Hmm.
Just give over to it. And if we get set free of some of those truths to be able to express who we are, you start to see these creative expressions that just, it's like the rocks crying out.
Yeah.
People put their spirit in art.
Yes.
Tattoos, their spirit in that, their spirit in the bridge behind you, their spirit in paintings, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. Why not fill that with the presence of God?
Yes. Yeah. It's just so funny because you're just like speaking exactly what some of my poetry says.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And
yeah,
and that's so God too.
yeah, exactly. Because one of them was called Industrial Genius. It's all a part of God's masterpiece. And I kind of bridged together, the Great Wall of China and the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty, and how it's all connected and how we're all connected through Mother Earth as well. So it's just like kind of that confirmation that I'm getting from you, from the things that you're saying. So I think that is really awesome.
Yeah, which you just said something that's really profound. A lot of people don't really realize.
Mhm.
But a word from the Lord, and he'll use other people to give us those things, should be confirmation of something we already know. It shouldn't be something new that we have to strive after.
Mhm.
One time I went into a prison, and there was a black man that was probably close to 40 there,
Mhm.
who he just looked cherubic, and his countenance just was like there's a light on inside and God's just indwelling in him.
Mhm.
One day, Lord has me come in there, and the whole service was dedicated to him. And Lord starts having me speak over this guy of all of these interactions and all this. Everybody in the room's blown away because there's no way I could know this stuff. And it starts off a little bit general, it gets more and more and more specific about how everybody's just they've taken offense, they've ridden him, they've they've done all of this stuff, and this guy spent an hour with his head between his knees just weeping.
Mhm.
I turned the service over to him. I let him do communion at different times. Let him speak and share and different things. And at the end of the service, he comes up to me. You don't know this, brother. This guy had a countenance of a king, the son of a king, who's
Mhm.
about to take his throne. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what his countenance was like. And I'm
Wow.
sharing that with all of this interactive stuff. And at the end, he goes, "You didn't know this about me, brother, but the Lord's been speaking to me about going back to Africa
Mhm.
and doing my ministry over there. I'm about to
Yeah.
get out." And he's been speaking to me hard. And the confirmation that you just gave me
Yeah.
through all of these words has just been so overwhelming. That's what's just had me weeping the whole
Mhm.
time. I mean, and that's God. That's really
Yeah.
God. But that's how words should be. Confirm
Mhm.
something that He's always really speaking, and it might give more clarity and some more definition, more empowering. But it should be confirmation. It shouldn't be something like, "Oh, I never thought of that before.
Right.
Maybe I should, maybe I should go strive after that," and then you just miss it.
Yeah. Never thought of that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what I also like is what was it? I believe it was Jeremiah 30 verse 2. It says, "All everything that I've spoken to you, put it in a book." And that's exactly what I did. I ended up writing my book. And then you, before this podcast started, you told me that you had a book, correct?
Yeah.
So, and I just, what, so tell us a little bit more about that book.
I'll show it to you. This is part of my life. This book is called "Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness."
Hmm.
It's a uniquely written book. It talks functionally about how all the metabolic functions of the body break down in chronic illness. The
Hmm.
original title was "Breaking the Chronic Nightmare of Lyme Disease." Amazon canceled my book
Hmm.
and would not allow it to be promoted or anything, no matter what I did.
Hmm.
So I got a hold of a self-publishing company and had them work with me to republish it. Supposed to do it with a new book cover and new title, and Amazon canceled it again.
What?
Um, and I forget what that title was, but they canceled it again. And so I
Hmm.
just shelved it and I let it sit there, and Lord came up with this cover, and what's behind the cover is, you see from the darkness a door opening and light coming through.
Hmm.
That's like revelation. It's a discovery of some hidden truths that are life-giving.
Yes.
I came up with this concept, and I found somebody in Upwork that the first cover that I put together for my book, I think that book was Lyme Disease Awareness Month is May, and
Hmm.
I had it completely edited and ready for publication by May 10th. And the goal was to get it published in May, and the people that were doing the formatting and the cover, they took close to 4 months
Mm-hmm.
to do it, and we missed that entire window. And the second time uh, it was faster than that, but all of the council, they didn't pick up that the way the title was done, even though other books are out there. Amazon is changing their policies, and you can't do things that way because they won't allow you to promote it. So
Mm-hmm.
retitled it, put on a new cover, and now they allow somewhat of a function on there, but it's still from a skew that they don't really like to promote. And there's I have like it's a 300-page book, a little over 300 pages. There's 180 different some odd sites on there. I could have had close to twice that. I just got tired of writing them,
Yeah.
but it's highly referenced in a whole bunch of things. People don't write that way. People don't
Mm-hmm.
write in a functional standpoint. I've been
Yeah.
a, a I've been studying physiology, how things work
Mm-hmm.
in everything for my whole life.
Yeah.
And so whatever I go about and do, I can explain things in a tremendous detail
Mm-hmm.
because I understand how it works. Like my son, when he was getting ready to take his college entrance exam, all my kids were homeschooled and they graduated from high school at 17 with an AA because they took their last 2 years in college. And he's about ready to get into college. He's waffling in his algebra and find out about that. I ask him a question and the Lord tells me to go home early on a Wednesday. No, no, I think it was Friday. He told me to go home early on a Friday and work with my son in math. So got him, had him get his math book. We worked in the evening. He was on unit 5 out of 13 units in algebra in the beginning of the unit, and we finished unit 5 that evening. I picked up his book and said, "You never see this piece of junk again. This is worthless," and I threw it away.
Uh-huh.
I had some self-paced math books from Cal Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I pulled those things out the next morning. In a weekend, we did 3/4 of a year of algebra.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't allow him to use scratch paper. I made him talk through everything. And
Yeah.
he only used 4 pages of scratch paper for 3/4 of a year of algebra. And you wonder,
Mm-hmm.
how in the world can you do that? But he got it.
Yeah.
And you can only do things like that if you understand how they work.
Right.
That book, studying physiology, usually it does compartmentalization.
Mm-hmm.
You look at kidney function and, oh, that's an isolated thing. You look at this aspect of liver function. Okay, now we'll jump to this aspect of liver function. What they leave out of the physiology books on what really happens in the liver is over half the
Mm-hmm.
functions that it does. And you look at all of these things and it's in compartmentalized. Our bodies don't work that way. They're this
Mm-hmm.
harmonious interaction. This book is written so you can understand all the harmonious interactions and how all those come to play in every aspect of every kind of chronic illness. Lyme disease is the king of chronic. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong with Lyme disease in the worst way. What sets the stage is candida and leaky gut. And we go through autoimmune issues, gut issues, microbiota flora issues. We go through all the hormone interactions, liver function, food intolerances, all that, all in this book.
Mm-hmm.
In a simple, practical way, it's full of stories on how everything goes on. And, one of the biggest subjects that's covered, we did a question on Lyme formats on what question are you dying to get an answer for that no
Mm-hmm.
one ever addresses? And it was like 75% of the answer was hormonal dysregulation and the impact chronic illness has on intimacy. So there's a chapter
Mm-hmm.
dedicated on that in
Mm-hmm.
there that in a gentle, tender, but very functional understanding of things. And uh, it sheds light on a lot of things. Like you look at erectile dysfunction, most people think that's a male problem. It's way worse in females than it is in males.
Mm-hmm.
You see that in menopause where women have a hard time with orgasms. That's because of their rectal tissues no longer erect and there's no longer engagement. And we have erectile tissues in different places. Well, the chronic illness is the same thing. And you start to have these hormonal dysregulations, these metabolic dysfunctions, and women's erectile tissues, they no longer function the way they can. And she can engage sexually, but she can't be fulfilled sexually
Mm-hmm.
because people don't understand. And these are subjects that are just shoved under the rug
Mm-hmm.
for a whole bunch of reasons because people don't want to look at that in a functional way. And you can address these subjects. I mean, the Lord had me open up the subject of biblical sexuality with college youth groups when we
Mm-hmm.
were doing retreats with college kids and all that. You can address that subject without creating promiscuity and without getting into all the nitty gritty mechanics, but give an understanding of emotionally, spiritually, functionally. And when you look at from a biblical standpoint of sexual interaction, it's the only interaction we have on the face of the earth where they're uniting a body, soul, and spirit. You
Mm-hmm.
give a bit of each of those of yourself to your partner, and your partner gives a bit of each of those to you just in the interaction. That's not just in fluids, that's there's spiritual aspects, there's aspects of the soul. And as a woman, you understand this. I asked a guy this a while back. So I had a question for you. You know, you're married. As far as from a woman's standpoint, what do you think's more important, an orgasm or connecting with her soul? And you go, so man, I've been married for a long time. That answer is easy. A woman would much rather have you connect with her soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you connect with her soul, she's going to get an orgasm anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But and yeah, ask college people. Okay, so you got three aspects of sexual interaction. You got foreplay, engagement, and aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those measures is the measurement of good sexual interaction? Which one's the most important?
I would say the aftermath.
You're right. And do you know why?
Why?
It's really simple. The aftermath is all it's where you if you look from a biblical standpoint, I think it's in Hebrews 10, let the marriage bed be undefiled.
Yeah.
That means that a man ministers to his wife, a wife ministers to her husband as a ministry unto the Lord, where he
Mm-hmm.
meets you in your bedroom, the presence of God descends, and you get the fulfillment that you need in life. It's the aftermath where you affirm that this isn't just an act. I'm just trying to go through an experience. That's where you go, I'm committed to you. I affirm you. I cherish you. I value you. All of the things that we need to restore our souls
Mm-hmm.
is what's ministered in the aftermath.
Yeah.
And that's what sets the stage for the next foreplay.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of men that understand that. Women do. And they're
Yeah.
crying out for their men to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a sad thing that we don't have schools of relational dynamics out
Mm-hmm.
there so that people get it. When my oldest daughter was getting married, I was talking to one of my brothers, and I brought that subject up, and I've done several weddings, and that's a discussion that we all always have. It's an imperative thing where you the weddings that I've been involved with, where the Lord has me do it, we actually do a deliverance in the service that's going on. We cut off all the issues of the past so they can't invade your present and your future and destroy your life. And you have to set the arena of sexuality at liberty. You have to remove guilt. You have to remove shame. Um, a wedding night uh, should be one of these things that should be a wonderfully awkward time
Mm-hmm.
because you are experiencing something with somebody you cherish that you've waited for. It
Mm-hmm.
makes it, you set the stage for such a richness where God, he comes down your bedroom and he meets you in the midst of that. And when you understand all of these interactions, it takes time. It's a conversation of every level. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation of soul, it's a conversation of body, and it's a conversation of spirit.
Yeah.
And when you're committed to all of those, there's there's all the fulfillment that everybody is looking for in sexuality that are doing all these perverse things trying to get satisfied and they can't
Mhm. Right. Correct.
because it only happens in long-term commitment
Hmm.
where you wash over each other all of these valuations
Yeah.
to build self-worth.
Hmm.
And it's, that it's a good way to live that way with all people. When we look at something like Christianity, Jesus says, I do nothing save for what I see my Father in heaven doing. And that's true Christianity. That's really our model, is get
Hmm.
out of our own selves to climb up in the Father's lap and get his view of things
Yeah.
and choose to interact with people in life from his perspective. And whether that's the intimacy of just doing this with an infant
Hmm.
or playing with a young child, trying to tickle them, intimacy with your spouse, or just out in the workplace, interacting with people as they have value
Yeah.
and pour life into them is transforming,
Hmm.
is completely transforming. And I guess that's, it's an amazing thing because I grew up in an extremely dysfunctional home.
Hmm.
Is so bad when in prison, 30 years of prison ministry, people start complaining about their upbringing and get tired of that. And I'd speak for 30 to 60 seconds about mine. It shut every prison system down.
Hmm.
Everybody just was silent, and the
Hmm.
conversation was done. Because they're looking at me, I'm talking what my background is, and it's obvious I don't live there.
Hmm.
It's obvious that I've risen above that. I live differently than that. The fruit of my life is different. I was asking one time in prison, you guys have you ever run into somebody who's just they just aglow and you see God moving through them no matter what they do in all of their interaction. They're just not of this world. That's real Christianity. Have you ever seen that? And I'm not trying to feed anything. The guy goes, yeah, you. You're the only one who've ever seen that in. And I go, what a way to live.
Hmm.
It's so much easier to connect that way because it's him. It's
Yeah.
not us. And we don't have all these fears. And the more time we spend with him, the more he deals with all those things that used to be hidden, that are guilt ridden and shameful and all that. He can set us free where that's not something in our present anymore.
Hmm.
And then there's nothing to fear.
Right.
That's that's a lot of subjects put together, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But I thank you. I mean, this has been a very informative podcast. So I greatly appreciate that. And then, if for any of the listeners who would like to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Easiest way is our website. It's healthfullyu.com, and it's the letter U, so HEALTHFULLYU,
Okay.
letter U.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Somebody's struggling with health issues, there's access to get a hold of us there. If they want that book, the book's on that website too. And uh, as far as kingdom issues and ministry issues, that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us too. Just it follows an email, and there's access to our phone number and everything else. So,
Okay. And I'll definitely also list that in the show notes as well. But other than that, is there anything else that you have to say or anything?
um, it's an interesting life. I think, as you can tell from listening to this stuff. But if anybody has really been struggling with health issues, and as I said, we in close to 40 years of doing functional medicine, I reflected on this a little while ago. Every time we have worked with somebody who's been in some of the most prestigious clinics and institutions in the world,
Hmm.
we beat their diagnostics and we beat their care every single time for close to 40 years.
Hmm.
And, but what we do is different and it's completely natural. So there's no bad responses and bad reactions to that. And we give people their life back. If anybody's really struggling for that, uh, get a hold of us because we give people their life back. There's a bunch of testimonies. And that's one of the biggest things that people say with the way we work with people. We give people their life back. And we're dealing with every aspect of human nature.
Hmm.
There's issues of the soul, there's issues of spirit, there's physical issues. We deal with environmental toxicity, mold issues, fungal issues, and those are the root of what most people are really struggling with.
Right.
So, it's an amazing thing to see women in their 80s have been on thyroid medications for decades, get off of those, their hair comes back, their skin becomes vibrant, their energy comes back, and when their libido comes back, they just get giddy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
um, and it's just a beautiful thing that people that think that they are whatever in life that they had dreamed of. It's a has been
hmm.
and it's no longer for them. It's just absolutely not true. The amount of redemption that's there. Uh, and we talked about several different things. You take people from chronic illness, that kind of redemption's there. Lord had us running ministry schools doing deliverance and teaching teams how to do deliverance for a long time. And you take somebody that's been in prostitution and get them healed up where they in a monogamous committed marriage, raising a family. I mean, that's God. It
Wow.
just is. And that's just an example of who he is. There's all of those things are available
Mhm.
for everyone. There's no one that's done too much where they can't have the things that we really, really desire.
Yeah.
The those those fairy tale dreams of a little yellow house with a white picket fence in some place. Those are and yeah, a knight in shining armor comes and sweeps up a princess. All those things are realities, dream realities of the kingdom of
Mhm.
God coming alive for us. He's in the midst of all those, and that's really his desire for us in a huge way. And even if somebody's upbringing is a point where you don't get it, I've 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 been in places where a a big dinner with scrambled eggs with some bacon flakes in it,
Mhm.
and down to no money at all to being pretty comfortable in life. I've been through all those things in different seasons multiple times.
Absolutely.
Um, and I can just say he is our peace.
Mhm.
It's not an emotion. It's not a something we put on. It's an indwelling of him living his life that brings all that about. And he's about restoring life,
Yes.
and he just has us doing that in a very, very creative way, in ways that people can't access in
Mhm.
any other way. So if anybody's really looking for that, reach out.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And then when you were saying it's about the amount of redemption, that kind of gave me the title of what I'm going to name this, because I liked how you said that, because there are so many people who feel as though this is the end all be all. I'll never get that back. I'll never be able to do that. And what you just said, I think, is going to speak volumes to so many people. So thank you for
Yeah, yeah,
that.
that it's just one of those God things, and
Yeah.
um, that's one thing that I really I heard and I understand. You need to, for podcasts, you need to give people content and value.
Hmm.
Um, Things that really touch people where they're at, and
Yes.
it's not so much that I just strive for that. It's just it's a background understanding, but it's something that just Lord does,
Hmm.
and it should be a beautiful thing. It should be a real welcoming thing.
Yes. Thank you so much again for coming on here with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Dr. Brad.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, this has really been fun. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yes, it has. And I hope everyone stays blessed.
All right. Well, thanks. Have an awesome day. Enjoy your Christmas.